During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about the advantages and disadvantages of no-till or a no-till system. We get so many questions about this from non-farmers asking about no-till and, hey, shouldn't all farmers go no-till? We want to talk about the pluses and minuses to no-till.
Some of the positive aspects of no-till are really obvious. If you've got steep slopes on your farm, well, doing tillage exposes that soil to especially water erosion. But you think about all the fall tillage that happened again in 2017, and those acres are exposed to wind erosion too. So keeping soil in place is one of the best things about no-till. It does a nice job at holding soil where it's supposed to be, and even allowing farmers to build up topsoil over the years.
What the farmer does in a no-till system is he leaves all the plants out there from the previous year. Yes, most crops are annual crops, so all that plant material is dead. But still, there are roots in the ground. There is a little bit of stalk in the ground. There are stalks above ground. There are leaves from after harvest that are laying above ground. So all those things help hold the soil in place, number one, and also when rain falls, it doesn't hit the soil with as much impact. That impact is slowed because there is old plant material on top of the soil surface.
When farmers don't have to do tillage, they clearly save time and fuel on their farm. Think about the jobs that farmers are doing that burn the most fuel. Well, it's tillage because they're digging something with iron down deep in the soil, and it's hard to pull those machines. So farmers cut back big time on diesel fuel expense. They also save all that time that they'd be out tilling. Now you may say, well, how do they control weeds then in a no-till system? Well, one of the things that they'll do is use herbicides, and it doesn't take much fuel or much time to run a sprayer across a field.
The other big advantage to no-till, especially in our part of the country where we're very dry, is the moisture savings with no-till. Every time you till a field, they talk about 1 inch of moisture loss, and hey, let's face it, if that ground is pretty black, there's a lot of heat that goes out, there's moisture that goes out. That's really not a good thing when you're not getting rain for a month or even 2 months at a time.
Well, speaking of that rain, by leaving the root system intact, it really helps microbial life build up in the soil because you're not disturbing their homes. And then when you've got decayed or decaying roots, they leave channels for water and for bugs down in the soil. It's a real positive in terms of water holding and nutrient holding capabilities.
All right, so it all sounds great with no-till, but here are a couple of reasons why we switched away from no-till quite a few years ago. We had gone to no-till for the erosion savings, the moisture savings. That was great, and it worked. But the problems we ran into, number one, nutrient stratification. Almost all the non-mobile nutrients in our soil, like phosphorus and zinc, for example, ended up in about the top 2 inches of soil. When we have dry conditions, we have plenty of moisture down deep in the ground a lot of times in our heavier soil, and we had roots down deep in the ground. What we didn't have was fertility. So what we really want is deeper fertility. What we ended up doing in the no-till acres, we switched to strip till so we could place fertilizer down 8 or 10 inches deep. That eliminated our nutrient stratification issue. The other reason why we switched away from no-till is poor spring emergence. Every spring, we're very cold. We like to plant when the frost is either still in the ground or it has just come out of the ground. Those soils are cold. It's going to take time for a no-till soil to heat up as opposed to a tilled soil. Quite often we find the temperature difference 7 to 10 degrees. So rather than doing a full conventional till system, we like strip till, where we have left it no-till in between the rows, and the only place we till is right in the row. So that row gets a lot warmer, and again, we can place that fertilizer deeper. Those are the two big reasons why we switched away from no-till, and in my eyes, the two big disadvantages to no-till.
All right, some other things that could be viewed as a negative, I look at them as well, there's some different management things that are needed, is you're going to have more insect problems when you've got no-till, especially insects that are in the soil, because again, you haven't disturbed their home and you've left lots of cover, winter survival's better and so forth, lots of factors there. So you're gonna have to do something about the bugs. The other thing is you're gonna have more disease problems because a lot of times disease will overwinter on the plant residue that's left in the field. And then when you look at the weeds, the weed spectrum changes too. You end up with more winter annual weeds and even more perennial weeds when you're not doing tillage.
Well, once again, no-till has a lot of great advantages. There are people who love it around the country and around the world, and we absolutely think reducing tillage is a great thing to do on many farms. On the other hand, there are certainly some disadvantages. There's no perfect tillage system, no perfect way to farm, but farmers just have to adapt based on their conditions and their environment.
Well, our weed of the week can thrive in a no-till system or a conventional till situation. Can you identify this week's weed?